So Ron Hosko is a CBS News security consultant and former assistant director of the FBI, and he joins us now from Washington. Boy, do we want to talk to you, Ron. So the FBI is in the midst of its investigation into the allegations of sexual misconduct against Judge Kavanaugh. Explain the role of the agency as it investigates these claims. What exactly will these FBI agents be looking for?
Well, first, it's important to know that this is neither an FBI-led criminal investigation that takes its natural path or a national security investigation that would do the same. This is really the FBI working in a support role for the White House, almost as a contractor for a client. The client gets to define the overall terms of the engagement. And so we don't know today exactly what the White House tasking looks like, how much latitude the FBI has to pursue additional interviews based on the list of interviews that they've been given. But what they're going to do is try to engage in known witnesses and potentially witnesses that are unknown to us and ask additional questions that relate to the judge's suitability for this important position. They may go to alcohol use and abuse. It may go to whether other people were witnesses to a particular alleged encounter. All that, I think, is on the table, but I think it is circumscribed by what the White House is asking of the FBI.
So, Ron, as you know, the White House insists it is not micromanaging the investigation. Some Democratic lawmakers claim the White House is keeping investigators from interviewing certain witnesses. I want to read for you and for our viewers an op-ed from the former FBI Director James Comey in this weekend's New York Times. He says this: although the process is deeply flawed and apparently designed to thwart the fact-gathering process, the FBI is up for this. It's not as hard as Republicans hope it will be. Yet, yes, the alleged incident occurred 36 years ago, but FBI agents know time has very little to do with memory. They know every married person remembers the weather on their wedding day, no matter how long ago. Significance drives memories. They also know that little lies point to bigger lies. They know that obvious lies by the nominee about the meaning of words in a yearbook are flashing signal to dig deeper. Is that your understanding of how this will play out over the next couple of days?
Well, look, the investigators are able to test witness comments, witness statements, witness recollections, ideally with contrary or other evidence that they might have access to. So they're looking to put together a composite picture to see whose information adds to something of an encounter or takes away from it. But at the end, the FBI is not here to reach conclusions. They're here to ask those hard questions of cooperative witnesses. They don't have compulsory process. They're not going to be issuing people subpoenas. And in fact, if they were to knock at someone's door and say, we'd like to talk to you about this confirmation process, it's easy for a potential witness to say, no, I have nothing to say. I've seen how this is playing out on TV. I don't want to be a part of it. And the FBI would walk away absent some other call to come back because pressure was brought in some other way. So their role here is as a fact finder to present that back to the White House, who would presumably present it to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and let them determine how does this move the needle in any particular way. But the FBI is certainly up to the task.
So, Ron, you know, the president wasted no time sort of pushing back against people who were criticizing this FBI investigation. He tweeted on Sunday that just starting to hear the Democrats who are only thinking obstruct and delay and starting to put out the word that the time and scope of FBI looking into Judge Kavanaugh and witnesses is not enough. Hello, for them, it will never be enough. And, you know, Vlad pointed out James Comey's op-ed. The other thing that James Comey says in that op-ed, before he talks about how skilled FBI agents are, is he says if truth were the only goal, there would be no clock, and the investigation would not have been sought after the Senate Judiciary Committee already endorsed the nominee. I suppose the question is, with only a week to conduct this investigation, can a thorough investigation actually be conducted?
Well, if you have totally cooperative witnesses pre-identified and the scope is wide enough, I think the FBI is capable of adding significant value to the background investigation that's already occurred here. This is unmistakably a three-dimensional chess game where you have all kinds of layers of politics, whether it is delay, stall, convince, move forward, that is all at play here. And the FBI really has to just put on its blinders and go be an independent fact finder. And if people can be convinced by additional evidence, either that the process has now been made right or that the process was never right and the politics are wrong, I suspect that as Major Garrett reflected, you probably have many people who have already made up their minds one way or the other. And the FBI's job is to add some clarity for those who may have still an open mind on this.
And could the clarity, Ron, be as simple as the nominee was asked several questions about references in his yearbook. He was asked several questions about his drinking habits. There are some without any evidence who feel that he perhaps misled the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I understand that this initially came up because of serious allegations of sexual misconduct. But even if the FBI is able to say, well, look, he did drink a lot in high school. He did drink a lot in college. He evaded those questions or he mischaracterized them. Is that enough? In other words, the scope of the investigation, whether it's limited or not, just asking those simple questions about the things that the nominee said when he was being interrogated, I guess is the word, by the Senate Judiciary Committee, would that be enough in their investigation to say there's some serious flaws in this candidate?
Well, I think that conclusion is really up to each individual senator. My own belief and experience is different people process alcohol in different ways. So 2 drinks to one person may be what looks like a dozen drinks to someone else, or a couple of cases to someone else. And so I think I don't see the candidate changing his version of events here. But I do think there's an opportunity. The window is open for additional witnesses to self-identify, to contact those FBI field offices or contact the main FBI number and say, I have valuable information. I want to weigh in on this. If those leads are pursued, that may shed additional light, or we may end up at the end of this week having not moved the ball 1 inch.
So, wait, before I let you go, Ron, you just said something that I hadn't thought of. Can someone who has some credible evidence call the FBI and say, I want to add to your investigation? And if that happens, does the FBI say, well, no, we're not talking to you. We're only talking to these specific people because Senator Flake said he wanted the investigation to be limited in time and scope? Or does the FBI have an obligation to listen to, and I know that it can't just open the floodgates to everybody who might have something to say about Judge Kavanaugh, but if they find it to be credible, can they investigate it, or do they say no?
Well, I think first, the public can certainly call the FBI. There is if you call your local FBI office now, all those calls are routed to a call center in West Virginia. I'm sure those folks at the call center are on alert to information coming in about this very important event, this confirmation process, and the FBI's role in it. So hopefully it's pretty smooth from a complaint or information to the security division that oversees these, getting that information there, and then people making an assessment as to whether we are, under the White House rules, are we allowed to pursue this? Can we pursue it on our own? Should we pursue it on our own? And my guess is they're going to probably relay some of that information back to the White House and say, look, this is the volume of what's coming in and the feel of what's coming in. Where do you want to go with this? Because we can expect that if they don't pursue it fully, the Democratic side of this group is going to be raising a ruckus about the FBI being unduly constrained.
So this goes back to the question we've been having all along, right? So is that normal for the FBI to say, hey, White House, here's an allegation that's come in. What should we do about it? Or do they just go to the deputy director and say, we have these allegations that are coming into us? Under the authority that we have as a federal law enforcement agency, we are bound to pursue them. Doesn't matter what the White House says.
You know, this is very unusual, this whole process, Vlad. And so I suspect that the White House, in concert with the Republicans on the judiciary, have laid out the terms of what additional work they want the FBI to do. And if something is within that lane, go ahead and pursue it. But if it seems like it's material outside of that lane, let us know before you pursue it. I do think the FBI is constrained here Clearly, they're constrained with time constraints, and I think very likely, very closely watched substantive constraints as well.
All right, Ron Hosko, always great to have your insight and analysis. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.